Hey keto friends, it's Bill, and this is my weekly report on my progress. I have good news, and then I have what I'll call news. I'm not going to call it bad news because I don't know that it is bad news, but there's some health-related status to report. So first, the really good news is I lost 2 pounds, and so I'm 352 as of last Friday. That says everything that I'm doing is working as far as weight loss. I'm perfectly happy with 2 pounds a week. I do expect that there'll be times that I get the bigger drop, as I've said in past videos, just based on my history of weight loss and how it typically works for me. I did 2 24-hour intermittent fasting periods last week. That's kind of what I intend to stick to for now. So basically, to do a 24-hour fast, I just skip dinner. So I'm having lunch and I just skip dinner, and then the next time I eat would be lunch the next day. And I will do that more often, if my body lets me do that. The one thing I want to talk about this video session is to kind of tie stress into everything. So as you know from previous videos, potentially, and if you don't know, please go ahead and go watch. I've had some irregular heartbeat, and more specifically, it's called arterial fibrillation. And so I had testing done, follow-up testing to see about other issues. I don't have any blockages in my heart, which is great. I still do have this arterial fibrillation that is currently being managed with medicines. So I went into my cardiologist. I've had all this testing done. I already had results back and everything seemed really good. So we're going in to celebrate, right? And then he says, okay, so no blockages, no other complications. What I think we should do now is to have a process done called AFib ablation. So ablation, they go into the heart similar as they did with the catheter to just when I had my heart arteries imaged so that they could see if there were blockages. But instead what they do is they disable, I'll call it disable, there's multiple ways that they can do that, certain nerves in the heart, so that basically arterial fibrillation involves rogue, I call them rogue electrical impulses that affect the heart muscle and make parts of your heart contract and essentially beat when they're not really needed or not supposed to beat. So you get extra, I'll call it extra beats. I'm not a medical doctor, so you just have to cut me a break on some of the terminology. I'm just going to explain it as I understand it, and if you really need to know more about this, I would highly encourage you to talk to a professional. A doctor or somebody. But you have these your heart beats every time your brain sends electrical impulses into it, and this AFib involves additional, I'm not sure they even know exactly why it happens. It affects a lot of people, but these additional electrical impulses go into the heart and cause the heart to contract at times you don't expect it to. I guess there's a number of different medicines to try to treat the symptoms of it, but this ablation is supposed to be curative. Of course, anything invasive, they're going to go in an artery again and go up into the heart, comes with some risk. So, of course, we're holding our breath again, just crossing our fingers that everything turns out as it should. But the intent and what we expect to happen is that they go in, they disable, they figure out where these errant signals are coming through, in which nerves these electrical signals are traveling, and they either cauterize, or I think they can use cold. Either way, basically they deaden those nerves, and therefore the signals that would come down and cause the irregular heartbeat can no longer get through. And as long as everything turns out well, that should be curative. You no longer have the problem. I suppose there could be a chance that later on in life you have additional nerves that are causing a problem. I'm not really sure on that, but at least for the time being would stop the problem that's happening right now. And one of the factors that I believe has contributed to the irregular heartbeat and nerves, and when I say this, I absolutely have seen data that stress is a contributor. But I think stress has been at the heart of so many physical challenges for everybody, but especially for me in terms of weight gain. And then I think now, as I've hit 50 years old, that it has the potential to be affecting additional things. I hope we're catching all of them now, and I don't want to see what else might manifest. But what I can tell you is when I look back on my life, I really do feel that I've lived an extremely stressful life. One of the key things is kind of trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. And here I am 50 years old, and to be honest with you, I'm not sure I still know. So I did spend an entire career. I don't want to say that I enjoyed no part of it, but I wasn't always sure that I was doing exactly what I wanted to do, and it caused kind of always questions in my mind. And so there was this overriding kind of factor throughout my entire life, just in terms of, did I pick the right career? And I guess what I would say now is, if you have a question like that, you probably haven't found the extreme passion that, I would hope to, and that I would hope everybody would aspire to. So much of my calculations were based on trying to make a maximum amount of money. And the message I want to put out there is not that I have the solution for you or to tell you what to do. I guess what I want to say is, if you're finding, I can bring it out really generally, right? If you're finding your life is extremely stressful, I think it's very important and worthy of extreme effort to try to figure out the specific causes of your stress and to try to change that in your life. And I know from experience that that can be extremely hard. It can take some tough decisions. It can take some life trade-offs that you might wish you didn't have to make. But the bottom line is, your quality of life is really determined by what you do every day. I think I've said before in a previous video that I got caught up so much in thinking about what I was going to build for the future, so the future would be better. And this whole health episode has made me turn that on its head and say, if you realize you don't necessarily have the benefit of a future, you always hope that you do, but you can't ever count on it. And so what you can count on is this moment right now, and what you're doing right now, and how you feel right now, and are you happy right now? And that's what you know that you can count on. I think it's really important to think that way, just from a quality of life standpoint. But I think additionally, it's probably a much healthier way to live. And I think that the stress that comes from not being happy in the moment, not only is it creating challenges to your happiness in life, but I think it may very well be affecting you physically too. I've said that I want to make longevity a priority. As I think back now, I'm realizing that I probably should have felt that way from the time I was 10 years old, or whenever I became conscious and started to have control of myself. I'm sure that longevity and the life habits that contribute to longevity are probably of a nature that the sooner you start, the better, and probably also could be that it's never too late to at least try to improve the situation. And that's where I see things now. Even with the weight loss and with diet and just general overall shape, the shape that I feel that I'm in, I can look back in life and I think that the times when I felt like life was flowing well and things were, really going well, if you took snapshots at those times versus the most stressful times, I was probably, in my best shape corresponding to the easier, happier times. So for example, when I was going to college down in Florida, man, I was so happy to be down there and just in the new environment and meeting so many new people. And it was the first time I had branched out, just as an example. And, coming out of high school, my weight has fluctuated my entire life, but coming out of high school, I was kind of heavy, one of the heavier times. And I can just go by the clothes that I was wearing. I don't know that I weighed myself, but what I can tell you is I took clothes with me to college down in Florida when I was down there going to Nova University in Fort Lauderdale, and I took some clothes that didn't fit me when I first got down there, and just because they got packed, it's not even that I was intending to have those clothes with me, but it just so happened I had this pair of jeans I remember that I tried on when I got down there, and they didn't have a prayer of fitting. And then by the end of the first semester, just to cut a long story short, the pants fit me well, and I had lost all this weight, and there really was no intent to lose weight. However, I can tell you that I was very active down there, and the school had a really nice gym and a really nice basketball court, and I was able to really plan out when I would go eat so that I wasn't having to pick out at any one time. I had the meal plan so I could go in just for regular meals and count on what food was going to be there. And they did a pretty good job, to be honest with you, that everything that was offered was not junk food, that you could actually get, some decent food down there. And that was just an example of a time that, I came home and everybody was like, wow, you look great. You lost all this weight. And it wasn't just the loss of weight, but, I used to play a lot of basketball and things like I could tell that when I got in better shape and had lost weight, I was much faster on the court and much more agile and able to make moves much more quickly. And then to give you a counter example and why I'm having to lose, in part of at least, why I believe I'm having to lose a bunch of weight now, is I moved back up to this area in Philadelphia from the Tampa area. And I came up here and, I'm not sure how much detail I'll get into, but I had some pretty extremely stressful family situations that I had to contend with that have been very stressful. Without going into too much detail, I've had to become very involved in taking care of my mother and things like that. So I have no regrets about it, but it's extremely stressful. The other thing that happened is we got into routines in Florida where, hey, you can go outside every day of the year and go ride your bike. And yeah, it might get a little bit cool in the wintertime, but you can throw on a jacket and you can still go ride a bike. You're not going to have snow on the ground. It's not going to be so freezing cold as to make you stay in the house. Whereas coming back up to the Philadelphia area, it gets cold and snowy and icy around here. I grew up in the Philadelphia area, so I knew what I was headed for. But the difference, I feel, let me put it this way, I feel there's an extreme difference in my reaction to it because now I'm older, and I'm not really wanting to go around and have snowball fights. And, to me, the snow and the cold is just a reason to kind of hibernate. Like I feel almost more like a bear up here in winter. And so that's really no good for the human body, right? And it even has an effect where, yeah, I have a gym membership, but, sometimes it's hard to get motivated when it's that nasty out to the point that I don't, even want to risk crashing a car or something like that. Now, luckily, a lot of the work that I do at this point, I can do from home, so I even have that choice. But I can remember when I lived up here in the past and had to go into an office an hour away and it would snow and it was icy. Well, I'm telling you, there's another example of an extreme, constant stressor, right? That's just always hanging over your head if if you're in an area where the weather can get so bad and icy like that, and you have to be places and you have to travel in that, well, you've built that stress into your life at that point, and so to circle back, my point is, I think a lot of people live with these stressors and they don't even think twice about it. At least I felt like that. I don't know that I felt I had options at times. You get stuck in things. And that's what I kind of wanted to get out in this video. It's worth thinking about that, in my opinion. I hope I'm reaching everybody that I can, but especially younger people, because I think that when I was younger, I was willing to put up with more. And, we have this culture. We almost have a culture like you're not supposed to complain. And, you're supposed to get work done however you can. And you got to man up. You've heard this kind of a phrase like man up, right? That you have to basically take on whatever comes and get it done and don't complain or you're weak in some way. And I'm not advocating, sitting around crying about it, but my point is I think you can take issues case by case and decide that let's think about if this can change. One place is where you're living in terms of just environment. For example, if I don't like the cold weather, I may have to be here right this second for certain reasons, but this is not probably where I want to stay forever, even now, right? I'm not going to stay in an area where I feel it's making me literally, physically, and mentally unhealthy. And for me, it's very important to be able to get outside a lot and to exercise, outside. That's something that lifts me up, lifts my spirits, makes me happy, and I think it keeps me in better physical shape. So that's something I need to think about, and I need, to maybe react to. I think another big one, and thank God for me, I have a wonderful wife. I just couldn't be more happy in my marriage. We've grown together. We've been married for 23 years. Something on that order. If I have that wrong, I'm going to get shot. But, it's 20 something years coming up on 25, and that's a long time. And still in love and, all that mushy stuff. And I just feel super lucky. But I have friends and I have acquaintances and people that I know that I promise you, they're in some sort of hell. And I'm not trying to assign blame. It's not a male or, specific to a male or a female or any of that. But I do know that people stay in situations that it's going to be no good for them. And it will have a physical impact. And things can go, I can tell you, things can go wrong in the human body. And it's another reason to really look at that. For one thing, obviously you don't want to be in an abusive situation, but I don't know that people really think about like, hey, my health is involved, not my health like overtly, like someone's going to punch me in the face, but if I just stay in some situation that I can't stand, I'm going to start to have stuff go wrong with my body, over time, especially as you start to get older. All this stuff contributes. So that's really what I wanted to say, is just whatever it is, okay, that's causing you stress, it is worth the effort and it is worth the time, in my opinion, to really look at that as soon as you possibly can and start to talk about how can I change things. And I think Americans, humans, I don't know if it's everybody, we've got to become more willing to really drastically change things, because some of the problems I think are part and parcel with the systems that we live in. And I don't want to get super political and things like that, but there's certain parts of our lifestyle that are just assumed. You go to school, you either find a job or you go to secondary education, and then you go find a job, and you just, work for 50 years, and then you retire, and at some point you go into a home somewhere, or you have your family taking care of you, and that's basically 99% of Americans' lives. We know that it's just statistically true that most people stay very close to where they grew up. There's so many things you can look at and just in terms of our culture that are just assumed. And the question is, are all of those healthy and are they contributing to our happiness? How about fast food, right? And just easy access to food and not really a worry about the quality of the food we're eating. That is part of our culture. We tolerate chemicals in the drinks that we drink. Like, I drink a Diet Coke here and there. I'm almost scared to really look at the label and see what all's in there because I can tell you, most of it is not there based on nutrition. It's a bunch of chemicals that are in there for any number of reasons that have nothing to do with nutrition, right? Well, when you're eating, it's supposed to be for nutrition, at least that's how we're evolved in terms of our physicality. At some point it turned into a party in your mouth, right? It's like now food and eating are celebrations, but for the caveman, he was trying to survive, he needed to eat to survive, and that was the primary purpose. And I think over human evolution, that was really how we evolved, or why we evolved the way that we did, right? Was we're supposed to be eating to survive, and it's just turned into something else as part of our culture. So that's what I'm talking about. We have to be willing to look at these things and maybe consider doing something else. So that was just some of my ideas about how I think stress has impacted my health, including the heart things that I'm going through, and tying that also into general physical shape and weight loss that probably applies to a lot of people that would be watching this video, just thinking about nutrition and weight loss. We've got to reduce stress. We've got to change our culture if that's what we need to do. But until that time, as individuals, we all need to take that responsibility for ourselves and treat ourselves better. And I feel very strongly that I would be having less physical problems right now if I had led a less stressful life. My life and my goals, focuses at times has been on anything but health. And I may still be lucky because there have been times where health and fitness and diet have been a focal point where I think, there's people that go through life and never have that. And I think that's the people you're starting to see, unfortunately, and I don't take this lightly. I'm very affected by it and very saddened, but as the older we get, my friends from growing up in high school and college and things like that, that as we get older, we have more and more friends and acquaintances that we're hearing of that are dropping off. They're basically dying way too early. So I consider myself fortunate in that respect that I probably haven't lived the worst life. I've never smoked. There's a lot of things that I could have done a lot worse. A lot of things I could have done a lot worse that I did not do. And so maybe for me, we're able to diagnose some of these things and deal with them instead of just the light switch goes off and you don't have the opportunity to have a second chances, third chances, and to be able to talk to people and convey their experience at all about what to do and what not to do. So I still consider myself grateful. So lost 2 pounds this week, and I will continue on the weight loss journey. What I'm doing is working, so I think that's very important to say. I really appreciate your taking the time to watch these videos. As always, I look forward to posting the next video next week. Thank you so much, guys.